being here. I apologize for so much of the inconvenience that we're all dealing with these days. I really just wanted to take some time after some of the news reports came out and we've been listening to what residents are having to deal with. And I wanted to try to give you just as much clarity as I could as to what we know is happening, what we're trying to do as a city, and what we can encourage you to do as well. I want to begin just with a few notes here of just thanks. First, this may seem strange to those who are watching me talk to the press, but I want to thank you for doing such a great job across the board and doing your job well and showing what's happening at Pastor Fu's house. And just thank you for the job you're doing. I also want to say a huge thanks to Jenny Cudd and to the whole group that did a rally today for Pastor Bob Fu. I know he was there via a phone and was able to see this community support for him, so thankful for Jenny, who organized that as well. And also a huge thanks to our law enforcement, who I know are wishing they could do more with what's going on here, but we'll talk about why there are so many limitations and what's going on. Let me just go to three things. Since I was a pastor, I'll give you 3 points. How's that? But I won't share a poem with you at the end. First off, I want to apologize to Pastor Fu's neighbors, to those who are living across the street from him, to those who are living next door, to he and his family. A huge apology. We are doing everything that we can do. A couple of points underneath that. It's very difficult to understand, but the First Amendment matters even for people who aren't from here. And so as much as they're trying to obey the law and they're doing the things we're asking them to do, we're going to protect a right to protest, even though it is inconveniencing us, and even though we know it's being done for less than honest reasons. We are arresting those who are trespassing onto property. We've even made some arrests for jaywalking, which nobody's probably heard of that for a long, long time, trying to do the things that we can do. It's still an inconvenience for those neighbors. Make no mistake about it. These people who are protesters, this might be something very difficult to grasp. These protesters are really quite innocent. These are people who have been bought and paid for by Miles Kwok and those associated with GUA that are associated with the Communist Party of China. You can go and pull around to the apartment complex and see where they have their minivan parked over there and have their food supplies for their children. These people are bought and paid for, as you've already seen. They're very well trained. They know exactly what to say and what not to say. They do their job. They knock on doors. Even though it's quite a nuisance, they are not the problem. They're bought and paid for, and hopefully very soon they will be gone. I want to remind you, our law enforcement is pursuing everything they can pursue to try to stop the protesters. But understand, if we were to go beyond some type of limit, we would put this city and everybody else in danger of lawsuits because of violating rights, ironically, that we have fought and died for, so people could even protest in ways that disturb us. I don't want to equate the local irritant with the real issue that's at play here. So let me go to the next thing. And again, I hope the neighbors hear us saying as a city, we wish we could do more. There are some things I probably could have done under an emergency declaration that we had for COVID, but in all of our efforts to try to open Midland up and we rescinded an emergency declaration, who would have ever known in rescinding an emergency declaration we could have used it to get people off of the front doorstep of someone we love so dearly? Let me go on to the next thing. All of this noise, everything that's happening in front of Pastor Fu's house is directly tied to Xi Jinping in China. Make no mistake about this. All of this makes its way all the way up to the head of China and to the Communist Party. All the noise and all the threats you've seen on YouTube and Twitter from Miles Kwok are all in his service and his commitment to the regime of Xi. I know it's very difficult to see people standing on a street talking about how Pastor Bob Fu is a member of the Communist Party and think, wait, that doesn't seem right. But don't think so logically. They are out to create a diversion and to attack Pastor Bob Fu, all in the name of the fact that the Chinese government, the Communist Party, Xi Jinping, hate Bob Fu and what he does for liberty, and all of this is in that doing. All this noise about Pastor Fu being a fake pastor, an agent of the Communist China, is all smoke and mirrors, while Kwok and his clan terrorize Bob Fu. They make threats against me. They make threats against this city. They make threats against our law enforcement. All of this is in service to the Communist Party. It's so important what you're doing right now for us to be able to get this message out so people realize and understand this has nothing to do with anything other than attacking and terrorizing someone who the Chinese Communist Party under Xi's leadership despise because of what a threat he is to who they are and what they do. Let me quickly move on to the last thing, and I'll be happy to take any questions. What do we do now? First, I want to call on as many of you as I can call on to love on Pastor Fu's neighbors, to love on them, to bless them. I can't even imagine everything they're going through as these people show up in front of their houses, show up on their block day after day, create fear in them, keep them inside of their houses. Let's be sure we're great neighbors in the city of Midland to the people who are the neighbors of Bob Fu. Keep praying for Bob Fu and his family. Hopefully, when these people realize what they're doing is not going to be believed or adhered to here in Midland, they'll get out of here as quick as possible. I've said this 2 times now, I'll say it a 3rd time. Understand we are doing everything that we can do. Without going into a lot of details, please understand I'm on the phone every single day talking to people around this country, trying to figure out the things that we can do, things that we can do to change this, and the things we can do internationally and nationally to put the blame right where it belongs. I would tell you this, also fight back against these protesters with kindness. Just keep doing what we say we do as this type of community, which is rather than hating our enemies, loving our enemies, and just remember this, the people we can see with our eyes today are not the real enemy. The real enemies are the ones making videos and posting them on YouTube and Twitter, and the real enemy is still the Communist Party of Xi Jinping in China, who wants Bob Fu done away with. So with that, I'll be happy to take any questions, and thank you for being here. Yes?
You said that the police officers are arresting protesters for jaywalking, but there's no crosswalk, there's no markings on the street. So if people were crossing the street before, why are you arresting protesters for jaywalking?
Well, quite frankly, we've been trying to do everything we can to see if we can get protesters off the streets. We also understand as quick as we have been able to arrest them, they've been bailed out by a local attorney here in town. And so even that strategy of trying to take them into custody to find out who's paying their bills is something that hasn't worked for us the way we thought it would. So that's why we're back down to simply criminal trespass.
Now you talked a little bit about the neighbors around Bob Fu's house. What about local restaurants? These people, they're out there all day. They're going in to go to the restaurants. Going using the restroom or whatever.
Right.
It's like kind of causing it. So what are you doing to make sure that they stay safe and secure?
Well, I don't think that these protesters are really under any threat in our community, so to speak, if I understand your question correctly. I think Midlanders, and even those who have come out to sort of counter-protest, are trying to just keep things as peaceful as possible. And really, I'm quite proud of our restaurateurs and the people of this city who, even though they know who these people are serving them, doing what they can to make their lives comfortable. And again, as much as they are an extreme irritant to every single one of us, they are all victims of Miles Kwok and everything he's doing. They are literally victims being paid, many of them asylum seekers who are here for a while to do the bidding, to get the paycheck, to go somewhere else and try to make a life for themselves.
Do you know how many protesters have been arrested?
I think at this point, four.
And Mr. Fu had said at the beginning of all this that these people had been hired to eliminate him. That was his word. Does the city now believe that these people are not dangerous?
Well, I think there's 2 different things at play there. There are people who do want Bob Fu eliminated. I would not equate those with the people standing on the street corner. These are the people who really are just, as I just said a minute ago, I'm not trying to repeat it because you didn't hear it, but just saying they've been hired to do a protesting job. These are not the ones that we should probably be afraid of, but there are others that we haven't been able to see and we can't see that we're worried about that might be in Miles Kwok's gang and might be people who would come into town, but we haven't seen those. We have no reason to believe those type of people are here, but make no mistake about it, on that second note, Bob Fu is correct that there are multiple people who would like to see his life ended. That's why in this ridiculous story they propose about Bob Fu going back and forth to China, I promise you, I've traveled with Bob Fu into Asia. He sets foot into an airport in China. You don't get to see him again. So does that answer your question?
At what point will the protesters become a public nuisance?
Well, I'm assuming by that question you mean public nuisance, and we have to do something to eliminate that public nuisance. And I don't know that that could occur, quite frankly. We may have to pursue some other things if we think that's what is happening, if there's safety, if the neighborhood is under danger. I don't think we've gotten to that point yet, and we've also heard of when they might be leaving, so that's probably, hopefully, sooner rather than later. But it can also help us, as every single person who's listening to this will also contact their congressmen and their representatives. Conaway and Cornyn could be a huge help to us if the message from Midlanders gets to them to say, please do something in Washington, D.C. to get either President Trump or Vice President Pence or even Pompeo to say something to the Chinese there in Washington, D.C. that this has to stop.
Mr. Mayor, is there a way that you can prove that Mr. Kwok is behind all this?
Because they refer to him, because the videos are what prompt them, and we're trying to find a way to make better financial connections. But he seems to be, by all indications, the ringleader of every action. And when he posts his videos, you notice the flag that's behind him is the flag that all of these protesters are holding behind themselves as well.
Can you talk more about, maybe not in specifics, but the threats that you received? Are they emails? Are they phone calls?
Most of them are related to social media, and that's pretty much the extent to which I can take you to that.
And have you talked to the senator or to the congressman about the
I have not.
situation?
I have not.
Do you hope to get in contact with Senator or someone?
Well, I think they're aware of what's going on, and now they've been able to see that this is something that's not just a 1 or 2 day thing. It's become a nuisance in the area they represent. I've been thankful for August Pfluger reaching out to try to figure out what he could do, but that's why I hope through your broadcasts, our residents will see, hey, this is a time to shoot an email that has nothing to do with the presidential election, but shoot an email to these representatives and our representative and senator and say, please help us here in the area you represent to get rid of this nuisance.
So as of this time, you're not aware the federal government has taken tangible steps at this point with Miles Kwok?
I cannot answer in the positive or the negative about what the federal government has done at this time, but I can assure you that at multiple levels there is involvement in what's going on here in Midland, Texas.
And you don't think the protesters are communists, right? I mean, one of them that was arrested had a Sugar Land address. So
Yeah, exactly. I don't know that, well, here's what I know about most of the protesters. They have no connection to China other than they wanted to get out of China. And so they're no longer in China. China knows where they are, knows who these people are, knows how to contact them, knows how to hire them, and knows how to pay them. Anything else?
I drove past the protesters today.
Mhm.
They're now holding signs that say, we want to talk to Mayor Payton.
Mm-hmm.
Would you be willing to have that conversation with them if they reached out and wanted to talk to you?
I'll have that conversation with them off camera and not recorded, because that's exactly what they want. Please understand that anything we do out there right now, they want to turn a camera on us, and then they want to make up a story about how we have long rifles out there and how these Texans are trying to torment us and terrorize us. So, if they want to meet with me, we can meet in these chambers with no cameras, no recorders, and I'll be happy to have a conversation with them, because I'm not going to keep playing into their hand, which is why you haven't seen me out there lately.
how long do you think it'll last? I mean, the money's in this, right?
It could be, we have an indication that it could be shorter than longer right now, and so that's a huge hope that we have, and I hope that what we've heard is true, and then if it turns out to continue to be longer and longer, we'll see what we can do to eradicate it.
And the pastor's state of mind right now, not being able to live at home, how's he doing?
Actually, in my conversations with him, he seems to be doing really well considering the circumstances, him and his family, and glad they're in a safe place.